out there and creating a fan base for them before going out and putting them at shows and on stages and selling tickets on their name, right? So as opposed to what might be traditionally considered in the industry today as a separate thing to management, right? Where, most agencies would sort of be most experienced in booking shows. They have the network with the agents and the bookers and the festival owners and the venue owners. And while they have that network and it's easy for them to pitch acts, and kind of that becomes their sort of the way that they're seen as booking agents. And then management is considered separate to that. So the approach is, in my opinion, largely in the industry is separated, but in fact, it should go hand in hand. Without management, live is going to be actually extremely difficult to scale. It is something you can definitely keep doing, but I think we're not here to just do here. We're here to scale things. And that's when, if you keep management completely separate, then that scaling is not happening in the right way. So, yeah, I mean, just to summarize, I think I would say it's a lot of things. The easiest way to look at it is we all know brands. We all know Coca-Cola, right? We all know Coca-Cola ka president and CEO is doing something to make sure that they are in the right places at the right time, being visible in front of the right audience, approving the right campaigns, working with the right partners, and sort of just being that sort of not just a sounding board, but a very sound business partner to the artist, right? When you can consider the artist as a co-founder, you can consider the artist as a product, you can consider the artist as a co-creator, right? But the job of a manager will kind of really keep changing day to day. There's, especially in today's day and age, with the amount, like the speed at which things are evolving and how innovation is just, it's an everyday thing these days. If being in entertainment and being in pop culture is, I think it's extremely important to be able to like kind of to know what's going on beyond your artist, and really kind of like trying to know as much as possible, because you're going to be the filter to your artist also eventually, and having a pulse of the entire ecosystem is possibly the biggest prerequisite, I think, or something that you have to constantly keep investing in as a manager too. So, the role keeps evolving is what I mean to say, is that I feel like the kind of manager I was 4 years ago, I'm no longer the same kind of manager. I don't think I do the same kind of things that I did back then. I do things very differently today. And I've felt that what I've realized is that constant innovation and growth in your role is a huge part of being an artist manager. So I think at no point will I ever feel like I know artist management, boss. Aaj ke baad mere ko kuch seekhne ka zarurat nahi hai. And that, like, now I can manage artists. Each artist is different. They're human beings at the end of the day. They have to be different. They have to be unique. There's different ways to treat everything with every single artist. So, you just learn with every new artist you sign, you experience new things. It's like the guy who managed Pratik Kuhad didn't know what to do with Pratik Kuhad till he did it with Pratik Kuhad. Right. The guy the person who worked with Raja Kumari during her journey didn't know what to do with the Raja Kumari till they did it with Raja Kumari. So it's I look at every single person as an example, every single relationship as an example, every single entity in this ecosystem as an example to what the future of artist management is going to keep being, is that we're constantly going to keep evolving and just finding new ways of managing artists. And also I feel like every manager has a different style. Okay. So while the basics might be the same, is that yes, there's branding, there's marketing, there's social media, there's bookings, there's music management, there's brand deals and this and that. The way that they go about doing that is most times very unique. and unique to them. And those are the people you end up seeing starting their own agencies and wanting to breed more managers with that same sort of style, so to say. So, I'd say it's a long answer, but uh, to summarize, there's no answer. It's an ever evolving role, and I think anybody and everybody has a chance to make it in this in their own way with the right set of people.
Nice. Thank you so much for that. Because yes, it was a bit of a loaded question as well. I do know that, because how do you summarize almost an entire industry, if you will, into pretty much a neat 10-minute answer? Although I do think that you did a great job. Something that really struck me also in what you mentioned, which I'd love maybe if we could dig into a little bit more, is you did mention that it's also almost like treating the artist that you're managing as a partner, right? So you're also sort of riffing off and developing business ideas or project ideas that they have. I think it's also interesting to maybe, hear from you how much of an investment, or how much sort of what's really the input from the artist's end as well? Because I think there's always a lot of emphasis on what the management and what the manager can do for the artist. But I think this seems like a good segue into what maybe an artist can bring to the table as well.
I think it's very simple in my head, is that I'd hate it if somebody took decisions for me. I'd never be able to make my peace with it. I'd never be able to wrap my head around it. I would, after a bit, feel like I'm not in charge of my life. So, and by virtue of that, I feel that there is no management without the artist. It has to be a partnership. Otherwise, it's going to get difficult. Most cases, I think it is that there will be an artist that has a vision for themselves, right? Just like I might have a personal vision for myself as a manager, or as a husband, or as a son, or any of those things, right? And I aspire to kind of do things to achieve that vision for myself. The first thing that I would look out for, as in that regard, is someone that can help me do that. So if that is if I want to build a family, then that would be a wife in my case, who would become my partner, and we would collectively build that.
Right.
So very similarly here, I feel that it's important for an artist and manager to kind of find what that partnership is. I can't take decisions without the artist, because it's not my life. It's very simple. I need to keep their opinion and them in consideration, like through and through, and right from the start till the end. My main job is to have their best interest in mind. And I can't do that without being in consultation with them, even about the littlest of things. We might, in this job sometimes feel like this is a small thing, I can take a call on it. But the truth is that it's not, and you have to look at every single thing as important as the other. Because this, again, very simply, if I had made someone in charge of taking certain decisions in my life also, and they just did that without my knowledge, I just, that not having that knowledge is going to make me anxious and insecure and worrisome. And again, these are not the things that I want my artist to feel.
Right.
Okay. So as a manager, you kind of do everything that you need to do to not let your partner and your creative sort of creative partner and business partner not feel that this is a place that they can trust people to do the right thing and kind of consult over big or small matters alike.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, no, again, I think it's a interesting approach, because I think that, like you mentioned earlier, different managers and different management agencies do have different styles. So it is interesting to hear hear this. This is, of course, by no means this is new or novel, but it is, of course, always reassuring to hear that kind of two-way, that two-way dialogue, if you will. I
Yeah.
guess also maybe, tying into that, because I feel like this is another interesting thing. When, you mentioned that you're looking out for the best interests of your artist as well, and you're trying to help them, of course, realize their vision. And of course, also almost like collaboratively build a vision together as well. I'm actually interested to hear your thoughts on how, and maybe this is something that you can, I mean, depending on your comfort levels, draw from any of the experiences that you've had with UTR and the artists that you're managing there. Um, Really, just how, as a manager, you feel you help them realize their vision, or really what is impact really for them? Because a lot of the times is it really about money? Is it more than money? Again, I feel like it's a loaded question, but
Yeah.
I'll let you answer it.
I mean, from my experience, what I've understood is that it's different for everybody. I've managed at the age of 23 someone that was 40, uh, and I don't think I could look at that artist the same way as I looked at an 18-year-old artist. A 40-year-old, somebody who's in their late 30s, almost 40, has a child, and is extremely passionate about music and wants to really make it, has certain things that they can't discount.
Mm.
The general need to provide, firstly, or the lack of being able to like let loose and hustle, because you have something that is also you got to be responsible for. You can't just go off the grid and like disappear. Can you go toward half the year while you have a 7-year-old at home? No, it's impossible. It's not. So I think it really depends where your talent and where your client is also at in their life. For example, like I said, if my best example is when I started working with Ritviz, and he was, I think he just turned 19 years old or something, and I was 24 or something myself. When I took over his management, and I just looked at the past year and I said, "What have you done?" You put out an EP, which is what I really liked, and I think it was pretty unique and cool. It did what it did. And then you went and played 30 shows across the country and made 8-9 lakh rupees across the year as a 19-year-old man. These are achievements, no doubt. But was it did it give you something that took your career to the next level? I don't know yet. Yes, it maybe made you a little more financially stable, which is great. But maybe playing those 30 shows was not really needed. And maybe playing 10 shows, but those impactful ones would have also done it. So it depends. If you really needed those 30 shows and you needed that money and you needed to do that, yes, it all makes sense. Did you need the money? No. Okay, so can we take a decision not to do so many shows? Okay, cool. Then what shows do? We start asking that question now, So, and then we start like thinking of every small little thing and how that causes impact or it doesn't cause impact. Did him go play, him going and playing in some club where there was a small DJ console set up and he just played music to random people? Did that cause impact? It could have, if somebody liked his music and went back. But that's such a big, we don't even know how to measure that. Maybe 1-2 followers increase on your Instagram the day after, but again, it's sometimes that also won't happen. So there's no real way to measure that impact, which is why I prefer to like make sure that we first create impact with digital and music and do certain things that we now have very solid, like charts, playlists, streams, numbers, whatever that is. There is something to draw from that is a lot more calculative and cumulative. and then use that information and data to kind of go back and say, okay, fine. Now I think if I have 100 listeners in Bombay, I think I can try and do a show for 50 people.
Nice.
Instead of just going and booking a venue that can do 500, that can fit 500 people without knowing how many people we even have access to, let alone knowing how many people will turn up. So I think it's that impact measure, the measuring the impact that you're asking about is fairly like, it's become so much better than it was, I think 5-10 years ago, where there was really no way. Now we do. And I mean, it can really help plan things better for any artist, if just done right.
Yeah. Yeah, no, understood. I mean, what I'm hearing is really that there is a lot of value in recording data, in collecting data, and then, I mean, data of all kinds, of course, including analytics, and then maybe something real time as well. But, and then, I'm also understanding that a big part of being a manager is also knowing how to read that data and then translating it as well. I do think, especially since you mentioned sort of the digital industry, I do feel like that's one, that's definitely one way in which UTR really sets itself apart from a lot of other, agencies and managers as well. For instance, and this is personally speaking, this is something that had caught my interest as well pretty early in the pandemic, and very much on the heels of, the in-game concerts from Fortnite, etc. There was UTR hosted sort of an in-game. I could be getting the technicalities wrong, but an in-game engine. Oh God, never mind. Let's forget the engine. But basically, an in-game kind of concert format with Ritviz and a few other artists as well. Yeah. So I'm interested actually, because things are only changing. I mean, Grimes just went cuckoo yesterday saying that she's willing to split 50-50 royalties for anyone who uses her AI generated voice. And I guess my question is, how do you feel as a management agency in terms of navigating this new music industry, almost, if you will, for your artists?
I mean, honestly, like I said, sorry, the dogs just pushed open the door.
No problem. This is also part of the reality of our lives. So yes.
I'll also just quickly introduce everybody here to Jeet and Liggy. If you all are fans of Ritviz, you would know those are his two song names that he has named his dogs after. Very cute. Coming back, I mean, I'm excited, honestly. Like, I feel like such a great time to be in this business. The possibilities are endless. The tech is growing. At the end of the day, a lot of musicians are geeks. And I think just this industry, which is the arts and entertainment industry, was always meant to constantly innovate. This is what drives trends. It is what creates pop culture. It's supposed to be far ahead of everything else. So I'm really excited. I mean, I know there's always talk about how certain things that are coming into the digital realm of the business could overthrow or replace humans, so to say. I personally think that that's impossible to happen. Can it become an ally, and can it become a part of the system? Absolutely, it should. And, we should only embrace it more and more and explore the possibilities. But something as simple as, can you take away what personal sort of touch a human being can bring to music, which we've known to be a universal language and something that breaks barriers and creates pop culture? No, I don't think so. There will always be that, you can replicate Drake's voice and the Weeknd's voice, but can you create a Lata Mangeshkar? I don't think so. Maybe somebody will, but that again, we'll see, and those are all the explorations that are yet to happen. And until then, I think our business of scouting talent and kind of working with them and developing newer sounds is always going to be thriving in that sense. Uh, when and coming just to quickly talk about what we did in the pandemic, and this is what I love about the nature of relationship I think I've managed to build with my artists. The real like juice behind that whole digital concert that we put together was one day Anish and I chatting about what's happening, and Anish is the biggest geek I know in my life. He's like a walking talking encyclopedia of like literally everything. And we were looking at the stuff that people were doing. We spoke to a bunch of like developers in India and tried to understand what kind of costs are involved in this. And it was absurd, honestly, what we found. But that's when Anish and Anish just went like, you know what, dude, I'm just gonna Google developers, Unreal Engine developers in Europe, and we found 10 people, 10 like independent companies in Europe that did this same work. We reached out to them. We got extremely like cheaper quotations, and these guys were like they're from Lithuania and here and there. Like they were really proficient with what they did, and we figured out what it actually takes to do that, and we did it in like one third the cost. Right? And a lot of that was possible because of the kind of like collaborative way that Anish and I work, right? Like it's not a relationship where like, oh shit, man, you're the manager, you need to know these things.
Right.
We all bring something to the table, and when we bring it to the table, it's for everyone to kind of like take it and run with it, right? Like there's no point in like breaking our heads over who came up with that idea or like whose job it might have been. It's really important that we came up with it, and then we figured out how to do it. And I mean, honestly, the next 2 months were really kind of spent working with these developers in Lithuania, building this show out. And then we figured, I mean, we went against the Sunburns of the world and the NH7 Weekenders of the world, and said, we're not going to play any of those shows. Instead, we're just going to do our own, sell our own tickets for this. I mean, maybe I didn't do a very good job at putting out a lot of the data around this show, which I hope to do now that I started our Instagram page. But we sold 8,000 tickets for that show, just purely off of the back of a student-led marketing campaign that we ran, and I mean, all the money that we spent on this project was really just to develop it. We spent zero on marketing, and yet we managed to kind of do those sort of numbers, again, because of the collaborative ways that we could like get the artists to do things, and how we came up with ways to reach people. The pandemic was just an excuse, honestly, right? Like for like extremely high functioning individuals to be sitting at home going like, what can we do next? I have so much time right now. And I think that's what drives this industry largely. Innovation, and I think it's inevitable, so I hope it only gets better.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a very hopeful note to be on as well. And I do agree that I think the pandemic, as brutal as it was, also, I mean, I see that there were a lot of interesting experiments, learnings that came from there as well. And I guess, maybe something to ask you before, because I can already see that we have some questions coming in. So we definitely do want to make sure that there's some time for more questions coming in from our listeners, our audience as well. But I guess really what I do also want to maybe understand, and it might be a tricky thing to ask. Really, so to me, it sounds like, whether it's Under the Radar or really ideally any manager a management agency, very invested in your artist's career, and you very much, like you mentioned, a lot of the times managers also see themselves as, partners or, collaborators. And there's a huge stake really in, the strategic growth of their artist's career. So keeping that in mind, um, how do you feel about commissions really and, fee? Of course, not getting into any nuances or nitty-gritties, but let me put it this way. There is, again, very much the same way there's confusion about what all a manager can offer an artist or should be offering an artist. I think there is also a lot of confusion about, what a manager should be charging in terms of an industry standard, if you will. And then additionally, I think there's always, myself with work, I've been on both sides of the table where there is a lot of back and forth about, whether that's a reasonable sum of, whether that's a reasonable ask. Because I think what happens a lot of the times with management is it's not front facing. So maybe if you can.
Yeah, interesting topic. And I think there's not enough spoken around it. Honestly, we all have hush-hush discussions about things like this. See, I think the first thing to realize is that percentages mean nothing when there is no money. And percentages will mean different things when the money is little as compared to when money is more. When you're earning 50,000 rupees a month, 15% of that is really just 7,500 rupees, versus you're making 15 lakh rupees a month. And now 15% of that is a lot more. All that one needs to think about when it comes to commission is, at that moment in time, is that commission that I'm paying, am I seeing work worth that much put in? And if we're at 50,000 right now, and yes, that means that 7,500 rupees my manager made, like, what is he going to do in 7,500 rupees? He or she going to do in 7,500 rupees as well, right? Like, if I'm his or her only business or only source of income, what's that person supposed to make out of that any which way? And also that if we are to, and is this person going to make me, are we going to go from 50,000 to 15 lakh rupees? And what is the work that's going to be put into achieving that? If you do this from an early stage with whoever you're, this exercise also, rather, of just having this conversation around, okay, this is where we're at today. This is how much income I made. What is the point of negotiate? Why am I looking at this agreement and like getting flustered that, oh my God, so much money they want to charge? How much money do I make? Let's look at that. Let's put that in front of the manager and say, man, I make 50,000 rupees right now. And honestly, this is not enough for me. Or that I want to make more. That's my aim. That's my goal. You will currently, if you start managing me, you will make this much. But what are you going to do to make this much more for yourself? Right? And that's what I'm interested in understanding. That's what I want to chart out with you. That's what we need to collectively work towards. And I can't just sit here, feel bad that, oh my God, they're going to take 20%. Man, if that 20% is going to help, if it's the right person, it's the right setting, you've got the right people in place, that 20% is not going to matter to you when you made it. It will, that's when it'll feel like, it's justified, like we went from here to here. So it makes sense. That's how you're going to look at it. But if you spend 2 years, 3 years, and you are still at that same place, you will never feel like that was justified. That percentage is for you to also see, yes, that is the increment in somebody else's salary because of by virtue of what value they're adding. And you need to evaluate your manager on that, are you making money for yourself or not? Because if you aren't able to make money for yourself, well, how are you going to do it for me? So commissions, I would say again, is that it shouldn't be considered in a very linear way. There's a lot to factor in, and a lot of it starts with where you're at. If you are Vishal Dadlani and you're looking to get a manager on board when you have like 10 people who will happily take that job, you are in a position to negotiate your fees, your commission. It's a very normal business tactic, but keep taking stock of, especially at an infant stage of your career, of the fact where you are and where you hope to reach, like, and how you are incentivizing the person that you wish to work with, right? When I hire someone and I don't pay them, for example, in my team, if I don't pay them the right salary and they don't personally feel incentivized enough to do the job that I require them to do, it's going to be pointless for me, right? So in a similar manner, it's important for artists to really start thinking of it this way, instead of questioning whether this is industry standard or not. There's for all there is no industry standard. But the flexibility to do this is, if you're working with an agency, it's always going to be a blanket thing. But like, if you're working with independent managers, that flexibility is something you will have. There are many, like for example, like a Bhuvan Bam and a manager, they have a 50-50. They've built Bhuvan Bam together, right? And they're best friends from childhood. They're really old buddies, and that's how they saw them working together on this business. Similar with, I think, I don't know too many examples of this, which maybe I shouldn't talk about also, but I know that there are many ways of doing it. Rohit and Bhuvan I know of because they speak about it, and you can see it in their relationship. And the fact that he doesn't work with 10 other people, it makes sense, right? If he had to work with 10 people, it would not make sense.
Right.
But if he's solely dedicated towards one entity, then I think it kind of adds up also. And if everything should be basis results. You feel 6 months in no results, yes, that commission is probably going to waste. I agree. But look at results before kind of making a decision on whether this commission percentage is right or wrong.
Right.
Is what I would say.
I think that's actually very, very helpful, and I appreciate you speaking about it, and sort of bringing a level of honesty into this as well, because I do agree a lot of these conversations tend to happen sort of behind a veil, behind a curtain, and it's very hush hush, very he said, she said, they said, and like at the end of the day, it's no one knows for sure, for certain. I also really like what you said, and I hope a lot of people who are tuning in also take away the fact that there has to be almost dual accountability. It's very much about holding your manager accountable and understanding what they're offering you, and where injustice is necessary for the artist to also understand that they will also be held accountable to different discussions and standards that have been mutually set together. And in all honesty, that's actually what a management contract at the end of the day is. It's basically two people agreeing to work together, as is the case with almost all contracts, and saying, yeah, we're chill, and this is what I'll bring to the table, this is what you bring to the table. So yeah, agreed. I think maybe on this note, we can actually open up for some questions. So I'm going to start off maybe with a question that I think we've gotten from our YouTube audience, if you will, which is how, as an artist, how do I know how do I know that I need a manager? And is it only performing artists that managers have an interest in? Good question, no? Yeah, I agree. Thank you to whoever posted that
Could you
question.
repeat the first half of the question
Of
as well?
course. As an artist, how do I know that I need a manager?
Mm.
And is it only performing artists that managers have an interest
The first part of the question, how do you know you need a manager? Damn. I didn't think this would be such a hard question to answer actually in my head. When you feel that you've hit the threshold in terms of what you can achieve for yourself by yourself. There are many like I'll actually give Ritviz as an example. That kid from the age of 13 was writing emails to him. He's one of the most dedicated like musicians I've come across in in that generation. Where yes, he dropped out of school and all this was different, but he was really hungry, and he's possibly the youngest artist to have ever gotten signed to OML at some point. I don't know. I don't remember us signing anybody at the age of 18.
Wow.
So did he feel at that point that he needed management? He couldn't talk to people, is what he told me. He's like, man, I can't talk to save my life. I'd really just love for somebody else to do this, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to do it till the time I don't have someone.
Okay.
He went out and did it and did it and did it, rejected, not rejected, whatever it is, He didn't sit thinking, I need a manager. And till I don't get a manager, I'm not going to be able to do something. While we're whiling away hours in a day, technically doing that. I think that especially in today's environment and in the business, a lot of things are possible. A lot of access is there. There's a lot of information available. Like music distribution can be done from anyone's house, for God's sake. Right? You can do it from anywhere. For 500 rupees, I'm saying it's economical also, right? Like something like TuneCore is charging you 500 rupees a year to distribute a song to every single platform. You don't need a manager to figure that out for you, right? I really feel that today the basics of management is just basic, like common sense and logic and available, making use of available information and technology. So there's a lot you can do, and the day that you feel like, okay, man, I've reached that threshold, I don't think I understand more than this, or I don't want, I don't think I have the time or the bandwidth or like the possibly the interest to really just do this. Sometimes it could just be that, okay, man, you don't have an interest to be that. So have a solid reasoning for it, except for apart from the fact that maybe a manager is what I need to make this career worth it. A lot of people think like that, and I think that that's a really sad way of approaching it, because managers are not genies. they they're not going to change your life, man. Like necessarily, it's not a given. The expectation is insanely ridiculous. So expect a manager to bring organization, expect a manager to bring clarity, expect a manager to bring camaraderie in your business, expect a manager to bring connect, expect a manager to bring more people, and build a team. But don't think that that's all you need to now take things to the next level. You could very much do all of those things yourself if you wanted to, and the tools are available. You choose not to and have a good reason for it, is what I would say. There's no right or wrong time. is actually the first answer to give. is what I should have led with. There's no right or wrong time. And another thing I really feel is that, I think it's so cool when a manager approaches you. If you're an artist, dude, trust me, you want that the manager approached you and said, "Bhai, boss, I want to manage you." And I feel like I want to get behind this. You convincing somebody or becoming a part of their business structure, and hence convincing them that they need to manage you. I see a lot more merit in when a manager is like excited to kind of sign that artist on and wants to co-create that vision with them. So yeah, that's also an important thing to keep in mind. Don't sign with management for the sake of it, man. It's very loosely done. Because I'll tell you what, I think there's a flip side to this as well. And just because this is important too, is you have to ask me how I approach artist management and what I do. My number one rule is to be extremely, extremely, extremely exclusive about my A&R. I'll sign one person in 3 years.
Right. Yeah.
Because that's when I'm sure of something, like I could sign so many people because I offer a service at the end of the day, which can be given to a lot of people.
True.
But an important part of this would entail. Sorry. Right. Okay. 1 second. Okay.
Well, at least we know that the dogs agree with you. So yes, for sure. But yeah. You were saying yes.
Is that
like signing artists once in 3 years, like you are that sure, basically. Yeah.
And I'm taking my time to kind of objectively evaluate what's coming my way and not being just
just like hungry and signing everyone on because like you said, you are at the end of the day a service provider, but that's not the approach that you're bringing. So.
Yeah, and that similarly, like I think artists also should start being selective and very exclusive about who they give their management to, rather than who they make their manager.
Yeah.
I think it's a way of like looking at this that requires a bit of modification. But yeah, I think we're getting there. It's like getting smarter and smarter, honestly. Like.
Agreed. Yes, evolution, like you said. Yeah. And maybe just a quick nod to the second part of that question also, which is that do you think that only performing artists are the ones that managers have an interest in?
I don't think that's true. I think it's easier to manage performing artists because there's booking people at gigs is an easier job to do at the end of the day than making someone's music go viral.
Right.
It is an easier task. And if maybe it can seem like performing artists are who most managers are interested, but I think with the massive change in the industry that's happened in the last 5-6 years with streaming and all, I think that's also changed. People are, dude, like artists are making a fortune off of one viral song, and that's enough to sustain a lot of things. So it's changing, it's evolving, and I think it's no longer, it's definitely not true that that managers are only looking for performing artists. I think every manager has a different approach to things, as I said, and some would look at some, some would want to do a certain thing, some would want to do another thing. It's, again, you have to be very careful and informed about who you plan to work with, right?
Yeah, agreed.
Know what someone's strengths are and be smart about who you ended up signing with.
Absolutely. No, absolutely agree. And I think, if I may just to sort of like add to that, I think also it's testament to the fact that we live in an era where, as much as it's about the music in the music industry is so much more than that. We know that there's a visual art component. We know that there's now, an AR, VR immersive component. There's basically a lot. There's a branding component. So I think when it comes to management, I mean, this is really why something like the 360 deal even evolved back when it did. Of course, I think it was a little bit of a late start in our market, so to say. But yeah, I think you put it very rightly. I don't think performing artists are the only ones that managers have an interest in. So it's really anyone who has an edge. And again, circling back to what you said, right? Like you want to find somebody who wants to work with you and
Yeah.
help elevate what you're doing. So yeah, I think
But I think no, as I just felt the need to add this is that it's really important to look at the global way of doing things, right?
Right.
The global way of doing things is that, when I say that, I'm saying look at a global artist. Don't look at just any artist in America or Europe or whatever. Look at artists that are up there. The biggest aspirations that we have as musicians and managers and whatever. There is going to be a manager who would take, and I'm going to get into finances as well over here, because they would be the first person to take a cut. Right? Because they will plan strategy across live, across PR, across music release, across brand endorsement, every single thing. They'll plan the strategy. They will then go out to find the right booking agent to execute that strategy. They will find the right, and that booking agent will take a cut. The manager's job is to find the right PR agent to execute that strategy on the PR front, and they will take a cut. The manager's job is to find the right publicist, the whatever, all of these different, this team needs to be put together, and the manager takes the first cut, but there are other people that take other cuts. The reason over there is, and why it's needed is that you're talking about an artist that's grossing millions and millions of dollars. Those cuts are worth a lot of money. Right. And that means these are high stake jobs, right? These are as high stake jobs as the biggest corporate jobs in India, right? For example, what we consider in the most traditional societal way as real jobs, so to say, right? When you look at how that functions and you see that we're actually hoping for the manager here to do all of this jazz and do it for like 1/3 of what actually, even if global standards were to be kept in mind, is being done at. But it is how it is right now, and I think we'll see where it goes from here.
Right. No, I think that's a good jumping off point, maybe for conversations in the future as well. I think we may have time, I think, for one more question. So I'm just going to go ahead and look at what we have. And this is interesting. I think this is looking at things from a different perspective. So one of the questions that we have is, what are the basic rules or points an upcoming or a learning artist manager should take care of? So this is really, I guess, something that an artist manager, an emerging artist manager, should be mindful of.
I'd say the same thing to anybody that is beginning their career in any field. Be open to learning. Be open to making mistakes. Don't be overconfident. This industry might look easy and fun from the outside. It's ruthless, to say the least. And you shouldn't underplay that factor ever. I consider myself still new, because there are people who've been doing this for 3 decades more than me. I'd hate to assume that the understanding that they have is lesser than mine. Build relationships with people that that are built on trust.
Mm.
Do good work. And don't let the hunger die. Honestly, this job is tough, man. Like, a lot of times you might have to make, I mean, and I guess, again, this, it's not about this job. I think it's about every job, is that there are times when you have to put your personal life aside. You have to sometimes have to sacrifice your personal life for it. And so it's important that you be grounded in reality, and don't let things get to your head in this job. Yeah, few things. There's a lot more to say, but I think this is good to start them off on.
No, that's great. I think that's definitely sage advice. And like you said, it's I think the whole purpose of this conversation is knowing that almost anything that you have spoken about so far can be elaborated on further. And I mean, this is what careers built on. I mean, it's definitely not something that that is learned overnight and then sort of shared just as quickly. It's been a long journey for a lot of people, yourself included. So yeah, thank you so much, Rahul. I think before we wrap up, is there anything that you would like us to know about? Anything from UTR or from your artists? Anything that you'd like for us to look out for?
I mean, yeah, we're actually looking to expand the team. So if there's obviously anybody out here that wants to apply, please feel free to write in. My email ID is rahul@undertheradar.in. And yeah, I mean, I love working with younger minds, and it's something that I've learned. This after all these years keeps me really, like, kind of helps me stay hungry to do what I also kind of set out to do. And yeah, I mean, I think that you can't. I don't think that you can survive in this business without the help of the newest of generations. It's going to be quite impossible, actually. So yeah, we're looking for people to work with, and if somebody sees this as an opportunity they'd like to explore, all yours.
That's great. Yeah, I'm sure that it's definitely sparked interest in some really cool and just ready to get in there. Some emerging artists and managers out there. Maybe even, I mean, I use the word emerging quite loosely because I suppose, you can always pivot and you can always try something new. But that's great. Thank you so much for being transparent about that as well. So if anyone's interested in working with UTR and all the cool stuff that they do, you just need to write into Rahul, and hopefully things go well from there. Thank you so much, Rahul, for taking the time out. Like I said, this was a really, really great conversation. One, I hope that we can maybe continue later as well. I'm sure we will, because I'm sure we will. But once again, thank you, everyone, for joining in. And I hope that this session was useful. If you have any specific questions or feedback, please feel free to let us know. Because that always helps and keeps things accountable and transparent as well. And a big thank you to GMI also for creating the space and facilitating these kind of conversations and discussions. So thank you, guys. And we'll see you soon. Thanks again, Rahul.
Thank you so much, Manojna.
Right.
Thank you. See you guys.
Bye.